It's one of America's oldest unsolved mysteries. What happened to the Roanoke colonists? There is so much hidden or unnoticed history in surprising places waiting to be discovered and explored. I'm Terry Price, and I have always enjoyed traveling and exploring little-known or forgotten history that's captured on highway historical markers. If that describes you too, I invite you to join me. The mystery began over 400 years ago on July 22, 1587, when a group of English settlers, including men, women, and children, arrived on Roanoke Island on the coast of present-day North Carolina. The colonists intended to establish the first successful English presence in the New World. They then disappeared. Over the centuries, their disappearance has baffled historians and archaeologists. While tantalizing tidbits of evidence have been discovered, archaeologists have not definitively explained the colony's disappearance. Organized by explorer Sir Walter Raleigh, the Roanoke colony was England's first attempt at establishing a permanent settlement in the New World. But what prompted such a risky venture? Europe had been undergoing significant changes in culture, the arts, and philosophy since at least the 13th century. Some changes were driven by an interest in ancient Greek and Roman architectural ruins and texts from antiquity, many of which Byzantine and Muslim scholars had preserved. There were significant advances across a range of fields during this period of rebirth called the Renaissance. Europe had conducted trade with Asia for over 1,000 years. By the end of the Middle Ages, there was an expanding and thriving merchant class who sought faster, safer, and more effective trade routes than the Silk Road. Explorers were also motivated to discover and acquire precious metals and amass wealth. The New World proved to be abundant in silver and gold. Both Spain and Portugal grew extremely wealthy, taking vast amounts of precious metals back to Europe. Before Queen Elizabeth I ascended to the throne, England had shown little interest in exploration or colonization. Motivated by Portugal's and Spain's growing wealth, Elizabeth promoted England's interest in exploring the New World. She granted Sir Walter Raleigh a charter to establish settlements in the uncharted lands of North America.
And we do likewise by these presents of our especial grace, mere motion, and certain knowledge, for us, our heirs and successors, Jew and grant full authority, liberty, and power to the said Walter Raleigh, his heirs and assignee.
Raleigh focused on the line of barrier islands along the coast of present-day North Carolina as his colony's site. To prepare for colonization, in 1584, Raleigh organized an exploratory expedition led by Philip Amadus and Arthur Barlow. They returned with reports of fertile land and friendly indigenous people, which fortified Raleigh's resolve to establish a permanent English presence in the New World. Based on the reports, in 1585, Raleigh organized a fleet of 7 English vessels with approximately 600 soldiers and sailors, but Elizabeth refused to let Raleigh lead the expedition. Instead, Sir Richard Grenville, Raleigh's cousin, took his place. The fleet sailed from Plymouth April 9th. During the Atlantic crossing, a storm destroyed one ship and damaged several others. On June 26th, the fleet finally landed at Wocacan Inlet on the coast of North Carolina and established a temporary colony. On August 25th, Grenville left over 100 men under the charge of Governor Ralph Lane and sailed back to England. He planned to return by Easter 1586. Lane then moved the colony to Roanoke Island, where they built a fort and houses. Sir Francis Drake, who was engaged in his great expedition to raid Spanish ships and ports, was to visit the Roanoke colony after attacking Florida ports. Drake arrived at the colony June 11, 1586. He rescued the men from almost certain starvation and a likely Algonquian attack. Both a ship Raleigh had sent and Grenville's fleet arrived with supplies shortly after Drake set sail. Finding no one, they returned to England. Grenville left approximately 15 men to hold claim on the land. Determined to realize Raleigh's vision, John White, the artist and cartographer who was on the 1585 expedition, led another expedition in 1587. Raleigh and White feared Roanoke was unsafe for a second colony, in part because of Lane's earlier disagreements with the natives. White's plan was to check on Grenville's men on Roanoke, then continue about 80 miles north to Chesapeake Bay. There they would establish the city of Raleigh, England's first permanent settlement. During the voyage, there was animosity between White and Simon Fernandez, the pilot. They had several disagreements. On July 18th, land was sighted off the Outer Banks. As White and his men disembarked, Fernandez instructed the sailors to not bring the colonists back to the ship. As governor, White was in control on land, but Fernandez was commander at sea, so the sailors obeyed him. White and the colonists found the previous settlers' fort demolished and the houses abandoned. The only clue regarding Grenville's men was a single sun-bleached skeleton. A month later, on August 18th, White's granddaughter, Virginia Dare, was born. She was the first English child born in the New World. The colony's prospects were grim due to dwindling supplies, continued strained relations with local tribes, and a growing threat of a Spanish invasion. Disheartened, on August 25th, the colonists petitioned Governor White to return to England to procure much-needed supplies. White reluctantly agreed. Before sailing, White and the colonists agreed that if the colonists left the fort, they would carve their destination in a prominent location and would add a Maltese cross if they had left under duress. England's engagement with the Spanish Armada and pirating on the high seas delayed White's return. Over 3 years passed without the Roanoke colony being resupplied. The colonists were likely in extreme distress. Finally, in 1590, White was able to join a fleet of privateers who were willing to take him and supplies to Roanoke. They set sail in March and arrived at Roanoke August 18, 1590, Virginia Dare's third birthday. White found the settlement deserted. The only clues regarding the colonists' disappearance was the word Croatoan carved on a post and CRO carved on a tree. White didn't find the Maltese cross signal, which he took to mean that the colonists were safe. There have been numerous theories regarding the colony's disappearance, some plausible, some fanciful. The word Croatoan carved into the post has prompted much speculation. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island and an indigenous tribe, so some have theorized that the colonists relocated and integrated with the Croatoans. Recent archaeological finds support this theory. Excavations on Hatteras Island have revealed evidence of European artifacts like pottery fragments and metal objects dating to the late 16th century, suggesting the presence of the lost colonists. Genealogical research has revealed that many present-day residents of the region carry DNA markers associated with the Roanoke settlers. Although Sir Walter Raleigh's ambitious vision eventually succumbed to the challenges of the New World, the Lost Colony is a captivating episode in England's attempts to colonize North America. It can be argued that lessons learned at Roanoke likely helped the next English colonists who founded a colony 17 years later, just a short distance to the north, at Jamestown. A plaque in Plymouth commemorates the anniversary of the exploratory expedition, as well as the two colonies. From Plymouth on the 27th of April, 1584, Walter Raleigh sent Philip Amadas and Arthur Barlow to North America to explore and prepare for English colonization. On the 13th of July, they claimed land in the name of Queen Elizabeth, called Virginia in her honor. This area is now known as North Carolina. In 1585, a colony under Governor Ralph Lane settled there on Roanoke Island, remaining a year. In 1587, a second colony under Governor John White established the city of Raleigh at the same site. This settlement, known as Raleigh's Lost Colony, disappeared between 1587 and 1590. This plaque, unveiled by the Governor of North Carolina in the presence of the Lord Mayor of Plymouth on the 27th of April, 1984, commemorates the 400th anniversary of Sir Walter Raleigh's colonies.